Holy Cross community. This is Father Gerasimos here from the Catskill Mountains in Roxbury, New York. And I'm here and want to share with you two thoughts as I'm here in these beautiful mountains of the upstate New York area. And I'm contemplating, first of all, the amazing silence that is here. It is 100% no noise. At this time, the only thing I can hear is the rustling of the leaves and a little wind that is blowing through, but it's truly quiet. And my question to you is, when was the last time it was quiet? You see, the reality is that we live in the city, and there's a lot of noise, cars honking, planes flying overhead. But there's also a lot of noise that we create, is that the devil does not want us to be still and silent, so that we do not hear our hearts and our minds and God speaking to our hearts. And therefore, how many times I've been to households in which the TV is always in the background, even when I've come to do a house blessing and I'm about to start and they have not turned off the TV yet because they have even forgotten that there is TV in the background. How many people walk and they cannot just walk without having their ear pods or whatever you call those devices people put in their ears, and they have to have music playing? How many times people are in their cars and there's always music playing in the background and so forth? And even in the silence, how many times we have evil, demonic temptations, thoughts going through our minds, depressions, anxieties, and so forth. And therefore, we have to be very cautious about these things, that we should find time for silence. But the reality is that sometimes we don't want the silence because we do not want to hear God's voice that is talking to us in the background or in our hearts. And we want to be distracted. And maybe sometimes in our lives that we do not want to hear God and we want to silence Him and so forth. But eventually we have to hear the voice of God, because if we do not hear the voice of God, then the other voices, the demonic voices, take over, and which creates anxiety in our hearts, depression in our hearts, and other horrible things in our hearts. And it is Christ who is the one who heals us, and we have to encounter God's voice in our hearts, and we have to learn to let go. So in this quiet corner of the Catskill Mountains, I pray that we learn to be more quiet and that we allow God to speak in our hearts. The second point, as I'm thinking here, is with the mountain that is behind me and in front of me. This is the beginning of the Delaware River. Here in the Catskill Mountains, the Delaware River passes, and from here it moves down. It becomes the borderline between New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and then ends up in the Atlantic Ocean, I believe, where Cape May is and Lowe's. And think about it, how many miles you'll travel down. But from this mountain that you see right behind me, this is where the rain starts accumulating and creates probably a small little creek, and then it moves down and becomes a branch of the Delaware River, and then eventually the Delaware River that is probably more than 2-3 miles wide by the time it reaches the Atlantic Ocean. So, and I think about that as it goes down, it goes through different towns and passes by many trees, and it waters many things on the way down. So the rain that starts here moves down the river and so forth. And there's a beautiful prayer that which is based also on Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah in the Old Testament, that says that the same way God waters and by the river everything gets saturated, the same way God's words, as they are watered down on earth, they reach out and they saturate and they transform. And just think about how a river transforms a whole landscape. The same way God's words and His teachings come into our society and they're called to transform. But as I said earlier, we need the quiet to hear God's words. So on this holy, beautiful area in which the trees are already losing their leaves, in which in other places they are colorful and full of life, I pray that we look inwards. We discover the quietness that we need, but also that we allow God to work in our lives and transform our lives, just like a river transforms our environment. May we be close to God, and may we detach ourselves from too much technology. We need some. And may we come back to nature, to prayer, to reading a good book, and to contemplate and think and just admire God's creation. With these thoughts, I sign off with a lot of love from the Catskill Mountains up in upstate New York. Amen.